Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Saturday Morning Comic Review. I'm your host, Ellen Wallace. Today, we got a great issue for you guys. It's going to be an Omega run, and really what the issue is going to be today is a continuation of the trade wars, if you will. Mostly working through, I think 9 out of the 10 books are different trades that we have, all in various different places. Some are brand new ones that we're starting off. Others we are completing and just getting towards the tail end of the backlog here. I keep mentioning it each episode, but I think around March timeframe is where I'll be fully and completely caught up, which is going to be pretty cool. So we'll just kind of keep plugging away. But before we get into the reviews, as I usually just kind of jump in, something interesting today, and I just feel like talking about it, rather than waiting for the wrestling one. But it was more wrestling related. So I do the two, right? Podcast. I have the comic book. I have the wrestling one. The comic book one does a lot better than the wrestling one. Like anywhere from like 2 to like 4 times the amount of listeners. Very small numbers here, but still, nonetheless, that's how the math ends up working out. And I go to post the wrestling podcast as I always do. I use the Creators app on the back end, which is specifically Spotify's like proprietary creator platform. And I go to post as I always do, and they've been changing it up to where they have some sort of interesting notification each time. And this is the first time that I've seen this. And it goes and it pops up and it says, this show has 12 followers. I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds about right. But the average for this show, or a show that this style, is about 15. And, whatever, they're small numbers. But it's amazing as a content creator or a podcaster or whatever it is that you're doing out there, that your art, a lot of it can feel like you're just screaming out into the void, right? You're just doing this. What return am I getting? Am I wasting my time? What else could I be doing? Is any of this actually working? What's the point? And you go through a lot of these ebbs and flows and feel like quitting. But for whatever reason, if you're doing what it is that's you're truly passionate about, there's this tug that's always going to kind of pull you back in. And I tend to try to lean into that. And I put an Instagram post about it, and it was really actually encouraging and like reassuring to see that, wow, I'm actually not that far off the average of what everyone else is kind of going through out there trying to put their art together. So it was encouraging for me of like, okay, you're not actually as far behind as you even think that you are, and maybe don't focus a lot on the numbers. Everyone else is also in the same boat. And just a message to you out there, whatever it is that you're creating, whatever you're putting out into the world, stick with it, right? It just takes a lot of time and traction and consistency. I think that's the biggest thing. It's just the consistency and putting out that work, that art, whatever it is that you're working on at a consistent pace over and over and over again, and the results will start to come in. So I was actually really encouraged, like, you have 12, but the average is only 15. I was like, all right, dope. I think we are on the right track. So anyways, I wanted to start off with that, and after that little fun little daily lesson or whatever you want to call it, we'll go ahead and jump into the reviews for the Omega run this week. So as always, 10 books. We'll go ahead and talk through them. It's an eclectic bunch today. You can see up on the video, but I'll go ahead and talk about it so you know what order that they're all going to be in. For the audio folks, we have Kingdom Riders, and so we're going to continue our adventure going through that book. It's not broken out into specific issues. Then we have Saga, issue number 33. Then we have The Nice House on the Lake, issue number 7. This is going to be the start of the Volume 2 trade. We have Batman and Robin, number 16. We have Superman, number 17, but this is from 2017, and this will be the conclusion to that trade. Then an interesting one here, Poison Ivy. I haven't reviewed this on the show before, but what I decided to do here is this is a book that I was reading whenever I had work travel, because it's a hardcover book. So I've had this book for quite a while, and I was like, you know what? I know specifically I've read through the first couple of issues. I'm going to actually start off here on issue number 5. We'll close this out, and then I have a bunch of other of the Poison Ivy volumes that we will continue to review. So I'll catch you up on the story on this one. Then we have Do a Powerbomb. This is going to be issue number 2. Assorted Crisis Events, issue number 2. Helen of Wyndhorn, issue number 3. And then Batman One Dark Night in a magazine format here, issue number 1. So those will be the books that we review in that particular order. We're going to start off here with Kingdom Riders. Just give me a sec here. try to get organized with all these trades because they're so much heavier than when I have just the standard issues. Alrighty, so for Kingdom Riders, again, I don't have like a specific issue, but it's just kind of a continuation of the story and where we left off previously. Apologize for the glare for the video folks, but for the audio folks, obviously, that does not matter. Let's go ahead and show off the League page. Nobody has reviewed this book either, so I actually feel like it's a little more special. If you want to take on this book, it's going to come from me, which is pretty cool. Just a reminder for all of my reviews, in case this is the very first time that you're tuning in, I do spoil the heck out of all these books. So if you're not into spoilers, it's just not going to be the show for you, which is totally fine. But we'll go through the story, catch you up on things thus far, what my thoughts are on it. I'll show you some of the artwork for the video, folks. I'll tell you my rating on League's rating, of course, as well. And then whether or not this is a good time to jump into this book. So for Kingdom Riders, to catch you up, and for folks that have been listening to the show for a little bit, you know that I've erred on the side that, yes, this is truly more of like a young adult, teenage style book, but I'm enjoying everything that we've kind of put together here and what the authors have put on the page. And from the art style as well, it's pretty good too. So we have a kingdom here that's in complete disarray, but it's kind of been built back up in a feudalist type of society. So it's a bunch of like serfdoms where you have a lord and then a bunch of like indentured servants. And this girl, Kayla, is working for this lord. They're trying to basically pay off their debts so that they could be free. One of her friends was about to pay off her debt. An animal died. So now, there's more burden to the lord. So he needs her to stay longer. Kayla says that's not going to work. There's this big race in the kingdom. She says, I'll go ahead. I'll enter the race, even though I have no experience, but I have a feeling I'm going to win. The lord laughed it off, but he's like, you know what? This actually might be entertaining. Well, sure. If you can win, then you can, we'll free your friend. And if you lose, of course, then you have to pay the debt that would set her free. So kind of a win-win for the lord. And all of the friends and the other indentured servants in this little like lordship, kingdom village, if you will, they all helped out Kayla to get her the right saddle, try to get her some good armor, and get her prepared for the race. So that catches you up to where I'm at. Then where we are at right now in the book of what I just recently read is we have a qualifier for the actual big race. So everyone shows up and you have the other, it's not like the whole kingdom, but it looks like it's the local lords in this smaller region that makes up the full kingdom. And it's about a dozen or so different racers that all are there to participate. But you can tell all of these other racers are like bred to do this. Like this is what they train for every year, to be selected for this race, for an opportunity to then go on to the big race. And here is Kayla. She just shows up, very much a rookie, has no idea what she's doing. And her racer isn't like a horse or steed or anything like that. It is a frog. It is a little like large frog. And we come to learn also that these races are very dangerous too. And so the Lord, he shows up, he's extraordinarily embarrassed. He's like, hey, I paid your entry fee, but you actually cannot race under my banner because you're too embarrassed by, what you're presenting out here. So she is technically racing independent, but he paid for her fee to get in. So they start the race. And the way that the race works is you have this like magical stag that goes ahead, and it's kind of like the hare when you have the foxes chase after it. And then all the racers are supposed to chase and follow this course and this obstacle. Find out that this obstacle course is extraordinarily dangerous. Nobody's ever completed it in a qualifier in history. It's just whoever gets the furthest ends up being the one that moves on. And so Kayla goes, and everyone starts racing off. And the way that Kayla's taking the route and the route of the course, it's like a little bit unorthodox. And they'll go through caves, they'll go over like a little pond, they go into a foresty area, and there are all these different traps. So in the cave, there are traps that takes out some of the racers. Kayla's able to navigate through it. In the pond, there's like this huge like serpent thing that attacks a bunch of the steeds, where the steeds are trying to go on the bedrock on top. But it's a frog with Kayla, so they actually go under the water and they're able to avoid it and go around it. So they avoid that. Then it's her and one other racer that's getting towards the finish line, trying to chase after the stag as they go into the forest. But we learned earlier, Kayla's like has this ability to like go out into the kingdom and find these rare items. And she goes into this forest and she has to pay this toll or this fee to these thieves in order to gain passage. So she knows to pay the toll, and she pays it, just like a reference back to what she did at the beginning of the book. The other champion does not. And the other champion's like, what are you doing? This is an old wives' tale. You don't have to do any of this stuff. And then sure enough, the thieves go in and they capture the guy and his horse. So it's just Kayla and the frog, and they dart all the way to the end. They don't beat the stag, but they do complete the obstacle course, the first ever to do it in the history. And she goes on and she's going to qualify for the big race. So obviously everyone's excited, and that's basically where I stopped reading off. So I enjoyed it. I mean, it's a cool book. I've been enjoying it a lot. I think at this stage of the game, I'm not quite halfway through. So by the next issue or podcast, I'll be halfway through the book, and then we'll get on to the big race, and excited to see what all happens there. But it's been good, and it's been enjoyable. I mean, I'm at a 4 as of right now of the overall thing. So let's go ahead and show off some of the artwork that we have here. So here is basically all the riders getting ready for the race. This is where they're off to the races here. And then as they're kind of working their way through the obstacle course, I thought it was pretty good action that you have here. Great saturation detail here. But it almost feels more Saturday morning cartoony than it does actually comic book. So here's like that big serpent that was chasing after the frog. And then we get towards the end here where this champion was captured by those thieves, and Kayla goes ahead across the finish line, which is great. So yeah, Kingdom Riders, been enjoying it. I do recommend it at this point if you can pick it up from IDW. So yeah, it's been a good one thus far. And I'd give it a 4 from what I've read. Next book here is going to be Saga. So we're back at it. Now this one, I feel like anytime I give Saga anything less than a 4.5, it's like sacrilege. Like, what are you doing? This is one of the greatest books ever. But I gave it a 4. Lee ended up giving a 4.4. This actually calls back to some characters that are being reintroduced that haven't been a part of the story for a minute. So to catch you up, we have Marco and Alana. They're 2 different species. They mated and have a child. Their species are at war, so it's a whole scandalous thing if it all comes out that, you know, these 2 species can even have a child in the first place, trying to keep it a big old secret. So in this issue, the characters that are brought back are these reporters. Then they basically work for the equivalent of TMZ in this universe. And they wanted, or were on the lead that, you know, these 2, a Landy and a Mooney, were together, and they have this baby, and so they're trying to break that story. But in this universe as well, you have like a bunch of these bounty hunters, and so there's this one bounty hunter that basically put this curse on them. If they were ever to bring it up again, they would instantly die. So the start of this issue is they find out that that bounty hunter is dead. And so like, oh, the curse is lifted. So if the curse is lifted, then we can now go out and break this story, which would be the story that would explode the galaxy, like that level of story. Take the Epstein files times 1,000 is what this would be, right? It's like that level of stuff. And so they decide, okay, let's test this out. And they do mention a little bit of something of what they were working on previously. They don't die. They're like, okay, that for us gives us enough liberty to go after it. So they go chasing the story as much as they can. It brings them to the point in this different planet, and they land, and they think that they're getting closer, I think, to Marco at this point, but they're not. They run into the Will. And I haven't mentioned the Will before, but he's featured a lot throughout Saga. He was the original bounty hunter that was trying to go after Marco and Alana in the very first place. And so he's kind of been a hermit and has been out of the story for a while. So now he's back, and he's basically taken the reporters and captured them, and is like, you're not going anywhere now, and now you guys work for me. And that ends up being the cliffhanger there. So it's kind of cool that we're bringing back characters from this issue, and then Prince Robot as well from the last issue, from earlier in Saga that have kind of taken, sat on the sidelines for a little bit, bringing them back onto the field and like actually using those characters and seeing what's the evolution and how are they going to change moving forward. So really enjoyed the issue, but again, I gave it a 4. It's more of just following what the reporters are doing than so much what else is happening with Hazel, Alana, Marco, and so on and so forth. So let's go and show off the artwork here. Now the thing with Saga is I do have to be careful with nudity, to be perfectly honest. Like, it is a thing. So sorry, video folks, give me a chance here as I go and flip through this. So here we are. They're out and about doing their thing. And if you know Saga, you know the artwork. Very consistent from what you've seen before. very dialogue focused, right? So very little action, I'd say, in this one. And yeah, of course, I go and I say the nudity piece, and sure enough, that is what happened there. So here's where they are. They run into the Will here with his dog that tells the truth, and this is where he's like, you know what? You came here, that was the wrong thing to do, and now you work for me. So yeah, that is Saga, issue number 33. Again, I gave it a 4. League gave it a 4.4. We're getting back to, kind of the rising action here, so I'm excited to see when everyone starts to clash and where that all heads from there. So next up here is going to be Nice House on the Lake, issue number 7. This one I gave it a 4. League gave it a 4.3. And I think the biggest issue that I had with this book and for issue 7 is I'm not sure where in the timeline we are. So it's the start of a new volume, but I don't quite understand if this is after Walter has exposed himself that, hey, whatever you guys are working on, it's not going to work. You're not going to be able to trick the superiors into saving the world. It's just not going to happen. Or if this is before, when they were trying to set up the house in the first place and make it, comfortable and accommodating for everyone before the end of the world happened. So because of that, that's a big confusing piece I don't understand. So a reminder to catch you up on where we're at. It's the end of the world. People's faces were melting off in the span of 2 minutes. And these group of friends, it's 12 or so of them, all went to their friend's house. They thought it was just going to be a vacation. We're all going to hang out, celebrate a birthday, something along those lines. Friends from college, high school, and then recent grads. But come to find out that no, the whole world ended, and for whatever reason, Walter is this alien creature, and he saved them some way, somehow. And there's some sort of experiment that's happening as well. And so they're completely bubbled into this very scenic, gorgeous, modern-looking house on a lake. And basically they come to find out that, there's a lot of weird stuff going on. They found out that Walter is a alien, for one. Found out that they can get rations. It just randomly shows up whenever they write down something. Found out that they can't die. And then towards the end, in issue number 5 and number 6, found out that there's another friend there who ended up making it, that they found it in a different building that's also on the property as well. And he thinks that there's a way that they could save them. So when he starts explaining, here's how we can do that by tricking the aliens, or this is some sort of experiment and we need to pass some way, somehow, so that way we can have a chance of resetting the system. Walter then shows up, says that's not possible, and we really find out that Walter's actual powers is he can just make people forget, their short-term memory is just gone. So imagine you just get blackout drunk and you just don't remember. That's basically what he does to them, and they don't have any recollection as to what happened. That was the end of issue 6. Issue 7 is a different friend, and they're in the house, but Walter's there, and no one's confrontational or mean with him. So it's okay, well, how far back did Walter erase their memories? Or is this a time where they were going to the house because the painter said he knew about this? So were they setting this up in the first place, and the painter, which is one of his friends, a normal human, who's just kind of playing along, because he basically led us to believe that in issue 6, that playing the long game here, letting it all happen and unfold so that way that they could reverse it some way in the end. Or did Walter just wipe everyone's minds, and now they think that Walter's just kind of a part of this and everything's normal? It's really tough to tell. So a lot of the issue is they're in the house, they're trying to set things up. They're reference to another structure that they want to build on property, which made me think oh, this is sometime in the past, before everyone actually showed up for the actual event. So the world is still alive, everything's still happening and going on. But I don't know. It really didn't give me an indication either way. And maybe some of it's in the past, some of it is in the present. It was just difficult for me to pick up and understand. So I think that's the biggest hindrance. But yeah, a lot of the issue is them setting things up, them trying to add different houses, and trying to add different structures, make everything perfect. Walter's fear of well, I don't know how things are. I really want everyone to come and to have a good time. That's what makes me think that a lot of this was, before the events that took place in the first 6 issues, but I'm not 100% sure. So I think that's kind of the point as well, is kind of keep you on your toes, to let you know. And then there's a character, they're transgender, but I just can't keep it straight in my head. I don't know what they transitioned from to. I think it was from a man to a woman, So they're probably throwing hints at me of like, are we calling them Norm or Nora? But I like literally can't keep it straight because it goes back and forth as you're reading through it. And I don't know. So I haven't committed it to memory. So maybe shame on me, and that shows how bigoted I am. But I'm the reader, and I'm lost as I'm going through it. So that's the biggest reason I got a 4. Good story development as we're talking through Walter and exploring more of his character on like his fears of trying to get everyone to get along, trying to make sure that this is perfect, wanting everyone to be happy there. Like, how is this all going to play out? So we've gotten some of those details, but it really hits the hammer on the nail with this issue. So yeah, that's Nice House on the Lake, issue number 7. I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 4.3. Let's go ahead and show off some of the artwork here. So we're flipping through. Same artwork as we saw before. So, right? So, like, here's Walter, and he's with all the friends here. But it's like, when is this? I don't get it. And then you're talking about the other house. So it's like the other house, well, is it a reference to the structure that wasn't built yet, or a structure that's already there? Here's someone cursing out Walter like crazy, but it's also like, I just don't know. I don't know where we are in the timeline. And it wasn't clear. So that's the confusing part for me. I probably could have like read a bunch of, the reviews. This came out back in 2022. But I was like, let's just go in raw. This is how I feel. So we're starting off volume 2 confused, but that could be intentional. And then it starts to reveal itself as you continue to read. Like a lot of Tom King stuff could be like that, where you need to read a couple of issues before you actually understand what's going on. So it could be by design. So that's why I'm also at a 4. Is like James Tynion really hasn't led me astray in any of his books. So I'll continue to, kind of ride for that. So we'll see how volume 2 evolves over time. I'm hesitant to say recommend. Volume 1, 100%. Volume 2, we'll just see where things end up going. So again, Nice House on the Lake, issue number 7. I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 4.3. Then next up here, because I was mostly trades, forgot to take this one out of the sleeve. We have Batman and Robin, issue number 16 here. I've been enjoying this arc that we have going on with Memento. I gave it a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.3. I really like what they're doing with Robin in this one. So it's Robin wasn't able to save this girl. Previously, when Memento showed up, he was in the basement of like this hospital fundraiser area, if you will. There's a big explosion. Robin saved one person but wasn't able to save the girl. You have a continuation of him having flashbacks on that, and it's like, dang, it's like really weighing on his mind and his conscious. On top of that, as we start and pick up in this issue, Bruce Wayne, back in the day, went to study overseas, and he worked with a detective. So it was him and another classmate who like worked in some sort of apprenticeship during the Memento killings over in the UK. And so they're learning about it all together. And so now they're trying to figure out, is this a copycat? Is this actually Memento some way, somehow? Like, what all is happening? So in the beginning of this issue, we have a bunch of Memento like fans. Like, I guess Memento has like the same notoriety of like a Ted Bundy or something like that, right? Of just a lot of people know who this notorious killer is, and thus a lot of fans. And so they show up at the old Arkham, and Memento shows up there and like kills everyone. But it looks like he kills everyone, but in actuality, it looks like maybe some sort of like hallucinogenic toxin was used, which is the poppy fungi. And the poppy fungi is like a native thing to Gotham, but it hasn't been around forever. And they're like, there's only one expert that we can go for any sort of fear sort of toxin, and you guessed it, Scarecrow. So they go to Scarecrow, who's out in, I guess, the newer Arkham facility, and they go to interview him. So when Batman and Robin show up, then also Bruce's old classmate from the UK on the Memento thing shows up. It's just like, hey, I hear we have some more copycat Memento stuff. She knew about it back then, still a detective to this day. So she goes to Gotham to help investigate. She doesn't know that Bruce Wayne is Batman. So Batman has to also at the same time be like, okay, I know this woman, but I got to make sure that I don't lead on my Bruce personality whatsoever and just remain as Batman. So we'll see if that comes up later in the issue or in the arc. But they get to the point where they are now interrogating Scarecrow. Got Batman in the room, Robin, and this other investigator as well. And so Batman goes into like full-on Dark Knight mode where he starts like screaming at Scarecrow like he did at the Joker in the Dark Knight. Gets to the point where he's like flipping tables, right? Life or death type of situation. And tensions rise so high. But what they don't notice, which is like not super Batman here, but the guard that's within the cell watching over this whole thing pulls up the gun and points it out at Batman. And turns out that this guard was one of the Memento fanatics. So, of course, Batman and Robin, they disarm him very quickly, but it's like, wow, that was insane. And like, how did we not pick up on that? And then on top of that, a wall of the prison explodes. And so now they're like completely on the defensive and totally caught off guard. It was like, what the hell is actually going on? And that's a cliffhanger. With Memento, it looks like in the background, either coming in or maybe it's like kind of the voice of Memento that's entering as well. It's a super awesome book, great thriller. I'm enjoying it. It's good stuff. This book came out back in 2024, so just keep that in mind. Artwork here is also excellent, and it's just been a great kind of story and arc, a great story or character development on the Robin side of things. I'm liking the thriller aspect of it. I'm liking a Batman that's maybe a little bit more distracted, a Robin that's a little bit more distracted. They're trying to figure out, is it supernatural? Is it just a copycat? Here we got kind of the Scarecrow investigation or interrogation. This is where you have the guard and then the explosion. And then Memento at the end here, it's like, is he actually there in the background, or is it just like, a vision or a mirage of who Memento actually is? So Batman and Robin, issue number 16. I gave it a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.3. If you find it on stores, it's not really the one to get into. You want to go 2 issues before it, issue number 14. But it's a great arc if you want to get into that arc. So I do recommend it there. Then we have Superman, the trade here of Multiplicity. This is going to be issue number 17, which is the conclusion to this trade here. Has nothing to do with the Multiplicity. It's the start of a different arc. In actuality, it's more of just a one-shot. What we have here is John, just Superman's son, and is it Betsy, I want to say? Let's see if I can pull it up real quick. It's John and Kathy, and they are trying to find Kathy's grandfather. So it's just the kids. It's late at night. Kathy's grandfather's missing, and then their cow, Bessie, is also missing as well. So the kids, they go out, they go into the swamp area, and then when they're in the swamp, they start seeing a whole bunch of weird stuff. They see like this huge, tall, slender man figure. They start running, head to their house. House, it's like a creepy haunted house looking thing, starts twisting and turning, and different animals start like attacking them and start talking and stuff. So they make it out of the house just barely. They head on back, and when they head back, they get trapped in a well. And when they're in the well, the grandfather shows up, and then the cow shows up, and they're like, hey, you guys are stuck down there? Let's help you out. They get out. And the grandfather's like, did you head into that swamp area? And they're like, yeah. It's like, you're not supposed to go there because there's a whole bunch of gases that are leaking off, things that make you hallucinate, basically. So it was like all kind of a dream, and they end up being fine. And then at the very end, you have this cliffhanger of like that Slender Man guy in the background, like somewhere off in the distance. So it's like, was it a dream or was it not? That's it. It's just a one-shot. Not really worth it. I gave it a 3.5. Lee gave it a 4. Meh. I'd say overall this trade, very skippable. It's from 2017. You had a couple of decent issues in here, but nothing that's worth going out and buying this trade unless you get it like super discounted. If you get it gifted to you, yeah, it's worth like reading. But remember, for this book, it was supposed to be the White Elephant gift in 2024. I ended up grabbing it myself, and so it's part of the backlog. Figured let's go ahead and read it, and now it's the conclusion. But overall, you can go ahead and just skip the book. So that's Superman issue number 17 from 2017, and the conclusion of the Multiplicity Superman volume number 3. And yeah, the whole thing overall, let's see, I think I'd probably give it a 3.5. That'd probably be my rating overall, because the story isn't quite there. The arc's great. The annual was awesome. The Multiplicity arc, you had some 4s and 3.5s in there, and then the last book here is a 3.5. But the annual was awesome, where you had Swamp Thing in there, so that was good. So yeah, is what it is. Anyways, let's go ahead and show off some of the artwork on the last piece, or the last issue, I should say. So there we are, John, Kathy, heading off into that swamp, and then here's where they see like that slender thing kind of creature. And then they start working their way through this haunted house area. They fall into this well. That's when they get pulled out by the grandfather, and then sure enough, we got the slender thing in the background. So was it all a dream? We don't know. We don't know. So again, Superman, issue number 17, gave it a 3.5. Lee gave it a 4. Then next up here we have Poison Ivy. So this is going to be issue number 5, and it's from 2022. So quite a while back, but this is like the ongoing Poison Ivy as of right now. Again, I picked up these hardcover books for the intention to read them when I was traveling, just being super OCD about books and like being afraid I was going to bend them as they're in my backpack for my carry-on. I was like, oh, we have these hardcovers. This looks pretty cool. I've always wanted to read Poison Ivy. I'll just go ahead and jump into it. And 2022, if it came out in October, it means the book was probably released, the trade itself, in like 2023 at some point, I would imagine. Actually, let's see if we can just find it here. Yes, in May of 2023, which makes a lot of sense as to why I would have picked it up. It would have been like a time where I was just buying things and not really understanding what I was buying. And this is an example of it, but the story ends up being really excellent. So it kind of worked out really well. And the art style is absolutely nuts. So that's the background on the trade. To catch you up on issue 5, I knew I read 1 through 4 and I had a pretty good memory of it. Issue 5, I wasn't sure. And thinking back to it, I may have just unintentionally reread it, but I think it was actually a good thing that I did. So we have Poison Ivy. She starts off in the trade as really sick, and so sick that she actually is like, screw it, I'm going to die. I'm going to take the world out with me. And she starts sending out like these pathogens within like the mail system and starts like sending it out to like try to create this pandemic and like starts killing people that way, which is nuts. Then she goes and she meets someone and she like kind of falls in love with them. While she also has a thing with Harley on the side, but Harley is like doesn't know that any of this stuff is really happening. And then so she finds like the good in humanity. And she's like, you know what? I'm not actually going to kill everyone. I think there's still love out there and there's still stuff that's worth saving. What I need to do is kill the person that turned me into this, which is this professor from way back in the day. And she's going to him to kill him. So that basically catches you up on the story. There's some side things that happen in between. But the big thing is Poison Ivy's dying. She's been poisoned by this crazy sort of fungal infection. The fact that she's alive is like basically a miracle. If anyone's to touch her, she's basically going to kill them. And the thing is festering and getting gross. And like she's got all these like sores and pustules. And like there's all these fungal things growing. It's pretty nuts and gnarly. So we get to the point of where we're at now in issue number 5. She finally arrives, but she's hallucinating also because it's fungal stuff too. So she's seeing versions of Batman that's basically her conscious talking to her, going back and forth. She finally makes it to where she wants to be, which is the lab where kind of all of this started. And she met the professor that turned her into the Poison Ivy that she is now. I don't think it was necessarily that he injected stuff and made her Poison Ivy, other than it was like her already having the powers and then injecting stuff that enhanced her powers. I think that's the origin of this. It's not 100% sure or clear, and maybe I'll get that a little clearer in issue number 6. But either way, these are certainly where the experiments started. And so she gets there and she arrives and she confronts her professor. And the professor is basically like, look at this incredible experiment and what it's become. And, he's been one of those that's like trying to, sell a whole bunch of different vaccines, but then also like the disease itself, trying to make money on both ends, all that type of BS, right? So clearly in it just for the money and the money alone. And she's just trying to kill him because of what he has done to her. So she's infected with this virus, but he's not. And he looks like this crazy, grotesque, disgusting, fungal to the nth degree thing. So she attacks or touches him, and now he gets the disease as well. But it's metastasized to this crazy extent within Poison Ivy. As soon as he touches her, he starts to like get like a whole bunch of these, fungal things that spread all throughout him. So it looks like she's about to kill him, even though she's extraordinarily weak and dying. But he absorbs it pretty quickly. And as he absorbs it, now it's like, oh no, Poison Ivy, what the hell are you going to do? That was kind of like your only plan and your only shot here. And the cliffhanger leaves us off of like, this guy is like super powerful. It looks like he's going to kill her, and she's completely powerless to do anything about it. So that's the story. It's pretty dope. The art. Let me show this off and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Like how gross and like pustule and disgusting all this stuff is. So, like here's a really phenomenal example of like, here's just like lying underneath. It's a great mix of both the storytelling and the artwork here. This gets towards the beginning of issue number 5 here. Like, look at this. You see the kind of crazy artwork that we're talking about here? These are the times when he was doing experiments on her, and like the origin of all this stuff happened with her and the professor. And like the whole book is like this, like to this level with, you know, the different vines and like different like mosses and mushrooms and soil and it's like, you name it, just all throughout the page. Here's the reveal of the bad guy here, and like look how freaking cool he is. It almost looks like Groot, but like an evil version of Groot is like the best way to describe it for those that are on the audio. So here's where she goes and she touches him and she gets that disease, but here he fights it off pretty quickly. She's not that powerful or completely powerless. She stabbed him before. This is actually where she touches him, and like all these different poisonous mushrooms and whatnot starts growing out of him, but he absorbs it pretty quickly. And then now she's like kind of down and out, and it's like, what is she going to do to be able to prevent it? So yeah, it's dope. Highly recommend. So this is Poison Ivy, the trade. I think this is called, The Vicious Cycle is the name of this one. Excellent stuff. Been enjoying the hell out of it. For this issue was issue number 5. I gave it a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.4. So issue 6 will be the last one for this trade, and then we'll start into volume 2. So next up is going to be Do a Powerbomb, issue number 2. Love this because this is where wrestling and comics meet up together. So this book, I gave it a 4.5. League gave it a 4.7. It's an awesome story. As I'm reading through it too, it's like a bunch of different wrestling tropes and jargon and language and lingo, and I'm loving all that stuff too. Kind of a zany story, but it knows that it's zany over the top, and it's like, don't worry about it. Just focus on like what we're actually trying to tell here rather than the exposition and all the stuff that's happening on the peripheral. So we have a girl, Lona, who has grown up. Her mother was a wrestler. Mother died in the ring during a wrestling move. And that 16 years later, she wants to be a wrestler, but nobody's willing to train her because her mother died and they want to protect her. And so this necromancer shows up and it was like, I have a way that we can bring back your mother. And he takes her into like this necromancy underworld. And issue number 2 starts. We have the conversation where he basically explains why he's here. Apparently he did some horrible things, tried to take for the world type thing, and has been isolated, and all he can do is just watch TV. And he's fallen in love with wrestling. So he wants to put on this grand tournament of wrestling and says, if you win, you can have your mother back to life. And he opens up this door, and sure enough, there's her mother, goes to hug her, or she goes to hug her, but then she like kind of fades away. It's like, you got to, wrestle in order to do so. And it's not just a singles match, it's actually going to be a tag team tournament. So you got to find a partner. She's like, what the hell? I'm not going to find anyone. He's like, well, you'd be surprised. You can go ahead and find someone. She heads back to Earth, and she goes, and the only person that she can think will likely help out is actually the person that killed her mother in the ring, which is Cobra Sun, I want to say, is the name. Let's see if I actually wrote it down. Cobra Sun. And so she goes to one of his matches. He's still wrestling, and goes to talk to Cobra Sun afterwards. And he's like, you're not going to believe this is a crazy thing. And he responds back. He's like, you had a necromancer that tried to recruit you to the tournament? And she's like, yes. So we're going to do it, right? He's like, absolutely not. It's like, what? Like, don't you feel guilty for like killing my mother? And like, this is an opportunity to bring her back. Why wouldn't you do this? I'm absolutely going to do it. So he thinks on it a little bit. And he's like, you know what? Fine, kid. I'll go ahead and do it. But the crazy thing at the end here is that it's revealed that Cobra Sun isn't the same wrestler as who it was all those years ago. Cobra Sun is now her father, who's dressed up as Cobra Sun and taken on the name and, you know, wearing the ring attire of Cobra Sun, which is a masked wrestler and this long black hair, but it's all part of the mask. And so it's actually her dad who's going to be helping her in this tournament. The same guy who said, "You're not allowed to be wrestling." Nuts. I'm loving it. Awesome story. Really cool. The artwork is excellent as well. Go ahead and show off some of that. I love the detail around it. It's super over the top and zany. It's like almost like neon-like with the 80s, like Mad Max type of style is the way that I would describe it too. Oh, the other funny thing about the Necromancer is because he's only watched wrestling, and I don't know if he has like access to the internet, but he doesn't know that wrestling is fake. And she's like, all right, so like who am I going to work with, and like how do we decide the matches? And she's like, that's not how it works. So a lot of that is like hilarious. So yeah, here's a Luna like learning to train and everything like that. This is where they are in this necromancy world. That's the end of actually issue number 1. Issue number 2 here is where Lona's looking at Cobra Sun and the match that he's having. Afterwards, they have the conversation about everything, and then it's revealed here that that's actually her father, who's dressed up as Cobra Sun. So yeah, cool stuff. Let's do a Powerbomb. Issue number 2, I gave it a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.7. I'm 2 issues in, and I'm already going to say I recommend it. It's one of the highest rated independent books, so I'm sure just going to continue. Very, very, very biased because I love professional wrestling and comic books as well, and the two are coming together. So take that with a grain of salt. But, you know, the proof is in the pudding with the scores as well. 4.7 is excellent. So that's that. We'll go next to Assorted Crisis Events, issue number 2. This was a screwed up one. And I wasn't really sure if I would give it this score or not, but I decided to. So I gave it a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.5 as well.
Nailed it. I know. Thank you. Moving on.
I was leaning more towards a 4. But in the end, it made me feel such a way. I was like, I have to give it a 4.5 because it's actually making me feel disturbed, like uncomfortable. I'm not okay with what is being presented on the screen or on the page. The Assorted Crisis, the first issue was like setting up this universe that a whole bunch of different crazy world-ending crises are happening all at the same time, all randomly throughout the world. And so this girl, she kept going to work, trying to live her normal life, but like these crises would interfere constantly, and it's like truly world-ending. Like time stopped working. You have an alien invasion, the asteroids coming towards Earth, massive cataclysmic, earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, things like that, and it just happens. And it'll happen to individuals, it'll happen to groups of people, and then finally it ended up happening to her, where it was like this big, fiery kind of cataclysmic thing that was taking place. So now in issue number 2, it's about a totally different guy. So he is, it seems to just be in this time loop where he was a kid. His dad worked in a meat slaughterhouse like plant, killing cows for food, and then he was taking up that job and continuing it. But it looks like his dad got into a really bad accident at the plant and fell through the meat grinder and died that way. And so he's like trying to get out of this job. He's trying to find something else, but it's illegal or doesn't have the papers. So he's like forced to just work this horrible, horrifying job. And he's the one that's actually killing the cows too. And just the psychosis of doing that constantly. He's going to see a shrink. At times he seems fine. At other times he seems like he's losing it. And then at the same time, the crisis seems like there's these raptors, dinosaurs, that have entered into the slaughterhouse and are like attacking. So that's basically the story. And then it's just a carousel of that. And then you mix in the different lines and subplots of the story and different scenery as well. And then some of the raptors too. It's bloody, it's gory, and it's just like the scene in all different timelines all pieced together as you're continuing through it. And towards the end of it, it was uncomfortable. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like way too much as I was reading through it. But that's basically the story. So let's go ahead and show off the artwork so you can see what I'm actually talking about here. But so we have our protagonist, and here is where he is like staring down these raptors, and you get the story, his father who passed away, and then here's him, it looks like trying to cross over. Here's him at the the slaughterhouse, and like everyone's basically saying like, yeah, it's a gross thing, but you get used to it and stuff. And then you have like the time warp starts to take place and things start to mesh together. He doesn't know what's real, what's not, and the artwork starts to mix in that way too. And there's like blood all over the place and representation of the cows and like the grinding of the meat, but is it him, is it someone else, like what's all happening? And then as you continue through the book, it's like all just mixed and jumbled together from the words of the previous pages with this one and these raptors attacking, and he's like in this infinite time loop and it's not getting any better, and it's a repeat over and over, and it's like what the hell is happening? And that's just basically how it continues, and it's ultra bloody and gory. It's insane. Wild book. And so at first I was like, I don't really like the story, but I felt so uncomfortable I have to give it a 4.5. Like I'm still thinking about it, and I was like kind of as I'm talking through it. So anything that moves you that way, I think is justified to go a little bit of a higher score. So yeah, Assorted crisis events. I wonder then, is each one going to be just a completely different, insane crisis event that is taking place? That's what the first two issues have been, and we'll see when we get to issue number 3. So again, that's Assorted crisis events issue number 2. I gave it a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.5 as well. And then our second to last book, oh my gosh, I love this book so incredibly much. I understand why it was nominated for so many Eisners and won as well. That makes perfect sense to me. Helen of Wyndhorn, my goodness gracious. I gave this book a 3. Sorry, I didn't give this book a 3. This is Helen of Wyndhorn, issue number 3. I gave this book a 5. Lee gave it a 4.5. It is definitely the comic of the week. And it is perfection as well. My goodness gracious, what an incredible story that we have here. So Helen of Wyndhorn, this takes place in some sort of fantasy world. Helen had a father who was an alcoholic, died. Find out in issue 3 it was via suicide as well. But her grandfather was loaded, lives in this crazy manor. The governess of the manor picks her up. She goes and just basically gets hammered and is just frolicking around the manor until the grandfather returns. He has this crazy, weird, mysterious thing about him. There's this little like baby, almost like doe, but like elf-like little deer that they need to return to the forest. And so the grandfather says to Helen, you're going to come with me and we're going to go into the forest. So it's this big old adventure. And it starts off issue 3 with Helen returning back and telling the governess about their entire trip. So they go into the forest. It feels like they're hiking forever. They show up. There's like this like witch troll lady that the grandfather pays some sort of toll to. Helen has all these questions. Grandfather's like barely answering them. They enter through the woods, and then they open this big old door, and then suddenly they're in this magical looking desert. So they're out in the desert, and they keep walking and walking and walking and walking, and they finally get to a destination that's like some sort of inn or pub, and Helen's like an alcoholic. So grandfather's like, I hear you like to drink, let's drink. And so they start drinking, but it's not the usual wine, it's mead, and they have 1 cup, 2 pints, 3 pints, and then you flip the page and it's like the whole table is like just loaded up with both of them just getting hammered together, him telling stories, so on and so forth. Helen passes out. She wakes up to her grandfather saying, Helen, get up, we gotta go. And there's a whole bunch of dead people surrounded by him. So they leave. Apparently, grandfather got drunk and someone else was making fun of Helen for being passed out. So he didn't take kindly to that and stabbed that person. And then he just waited there. The authorities were alerted, and then like more people came, and then he like killed all of them, and then they left. So now they're continuing their adventure. And I was like, shouldn't we be worried about this? Like, you just killed some people. It's like, yeah, I've done it before. She's like, well, aren't they going to go after the guards? We can't defend ourselves against an army. He's like, I've defended against an army before, right? So he's like some sort of crazy hero. They continue their adventure. Helen, and they do the same thing, basically night after night, just getting hammered every single night. And she's just trying to learn different stories of what all this world is about. And Helen actually wakes up earlier, and this random guy goes in and attacks her, and she actually stabs him, and it's the first time that she kills someone. And the grandfather just like laughs it off, and they like push the guy to the side, and then they like kind of keep going on their adventure. Then the climax of it is they get to the top of this mountain, and Helen actually knows the mountain because it was written in her father's book that she read. And so his father has been here as well, so which is kind of interesting. Get to the top of the mountain, and this goddess shows up with a whole bunch of different animals around her. So they return this deer that they had with them the whole time to this goddess. But the grandfather's like kind of worried, like, we got to go, child. And the goddess is like, yes, you can't be here. Death will happen. So swiftly as they were there, they had like a very short exchange of words, and then they left. And then Helen said for the very first time that I could see in my grandfather's eyes, like true fear for the first time of like actually horrified of what they experienced, even though it was like this angelic goddess. And it almost was alluded to that that's her grandmother as well, but not 100% sure. But that's what it was alluding to. So then they make their way back, and the grandfather doesn't seem fully the same ever since. And then Helen really doesn't say anything to him either, and they return on their way back. Awesome story. The art is incredible. The whole story itself is dope. This is like a masterpiece. It truly is. Let's go ahead and show off the artwork here. It is outstanding. So let's see. We are somewhere here. Perfect. So Helen and her grandfather heading out, doing the thing. Start off with some of this auction piece that's like something else that's happening in the real world, but that's the side plot that's taking place. The main one here, Helen shows up, starts telling the story. Here's where they are, going out into the woods, and they got this fantastical little, deer doe, but it's got like antlers and horns and things. Go into the forest, pay off this little witch, and then end up in that desert like I mentioned. Start trekking along. This is where they show up at the inn. They start drinking away, and then you can see all the pints that they have there. Helen passes out, and then here it is where the grandfather, like all bloodied up, well, we gotta go with all the dead people as well, continuing their adventure, and then get to the point where Helen has to defend herself, get to the top of this mountain here, and then here's where this goddess is and where she arrives, and they return everything. And it's like look at the art, look at the detail on that. Like, what are we even talking about? It's difficult to see with the glare, but if you can see like the whiffs of the cloud and like how things are like circling in, it's like truly incredible what they have here. And then the story to match as well. It's such top notch. 100% recommend this. So this is them on their journey back. They go back to the same forest, and then they end up back at the house. So yeah, awesome stuff. Helen of Wyndhorn. Couldn't recommend it more. Gave this issue a 5. It's been magical stuff, truly. So Helen of Wyndhorn, issue number 3, gave it a 5. League gave it a 4.6. It's one of those, like, I almost don't even want to review it because I don't want to spoil it. I want you guys to just go ahead and, read the book. So we get to our final one. We get to The Dark Knight, issue number 1. Boom. That's a lie. One Dark Knight. That's what it is. I can tell I'm getting tired, getting towards the end here. This is a magazine format, and it is a black label book as well. The book here, I gave this first one a 4.5. League gave it a 4.1. I'll say for this book, the writing itself, it's like simplistic, but the rising action of it, you can feel it. Like, I feel the thriller in it, and that's why I gave it a 4.5. And I think League may be a little bit lower because if you're not feeling the rising action, then I could see why you would give it a lower score, because just reading through it is a very simplistic story in itself. But as you're going through, you can feel the tension. You can feel it rising within you. We got Batman. He's overwatching a prisoner exchange from one facility to the next. We're taking EMP, the villain, and he's sedated. But if EMP gets out, like, it's going to be a problem where the whole grid is going to go down. A whole bunch of other gangs are aware of it. You got Alfred back at the Batcave keeping things and monitoring things. Batman's super stressed about it. They say they got a way to be able to transport him quietly and, without any issue. But there's some concern about it. Sure enough, these gang members show up and they break into the convoy. EMP gets out, and then he's stressed and he's trying to escape, and he heads towards the downtown, which is effectively Broadway in New York City, but in Gotham, all the neon lights, and he lets off a big old EMP, trying to regulate himself. And so now, Batman, completely cut off from Alfred, completely cut off from both precincts, completely cut off from the convoy, any of his tools, and you have all these gangs that are converging onto Batman in the middle of Gotham. And he has to figure out, how am I going to get EMP where I have nothing of any of my tools? I have hundreds of people that are after me and no backup and no support whatsoever. So that's the setup. It's wild. And the whole book is rising up to that point of like the fear that this is going to happen. Check this, check that. Look, on radar, there's a lot of action. It's also a super hot day, so that made it even that much worse. Whole city is now blackout. So what are all these, villains going to do as well? Or the gang members? It's nuts. I'm enjoying it. So I'll go ahead, go through some of the artwork. The artwork, I think, is just fun. It's more about that rising action. So if you're feeling that in the tension along the way, I thought it was incredible. But there's EMP, and sure enough, he escapes. He starts running off, and then he heads down to the downtown area. Not able to get there in time, and when he does, lets off a huge EMP. He explodes. Kaboom. And now it's completely a blackout. And Batman's got to figure it out. How the hell is he going to get EMP? We have all these different gangs that are now after him. And he's got to get him to Blackgate Isle. So they're here. The ambush site. Batman got to get to Blackgate Isle. It doesn't even show, I think, where the old Arkham facility actually is. But he's far away. So good luck. So yeah, that is Batman One Dark Knight issue number 1. I gave it a 4.5. League gave it a 4.1. Alrighty, so that is going to be a conclusion to this week's Omega Run. Let's see, we also have this book here. I'll just go ahead and recap it for everyone, so that way you know all the books. We had Kingdom Rider, Kayla winning the qualifier race, heading on to the big race now. Saga, issue number 33, I want to say. We have the reporters getting back into action, but they're captured by the Will. The Nice House on the Lake issue number 7. We have Walter trying to... It's tough to tell. Is this something in the past, or is it now presently trying to, work with everyone at the house? Batman and Robin issue number 16. Memento doing some more damage. And then now we have one of Bruce's old, kind of colleagues also supporting as well. Superman issue number 17 from 2017. This was just kind of a one-off between John and Kathy. We had Poison Ivy issue number 5, where Poison Ivy confronts her old professor, but it looks like she is now powerless. Duo Powerbomb issue number 2. We have Lona, who's trying to team up with Cobra Sun, but Cobra Sun is her father. Assorted Crisis events about a guy caught in this infinite time loop in this slaughterhouse while a bunch of raptors are attacking. Helen of Wyndhorn issue number 3. Helen goes on her first adventure with her grandfather, returning the little deer, and excited to see where it all goes from there. And then Batman One Dark Knight issue number 1. EMP has escaped. There's a whole blackout in the city, and a bunch of gangs are after him. He's got no backup. How is he going to do it? So those are the books that we reviewed. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thank you so very much. For the rest of the week, of course, we're going to do a regular issue on Saturday. That'll come out at 10. As we close out the show, just a reminder, of course, show's available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe. I mentioned that before. If you made it to this point, so please subscribe. It does help a lot, just from a motivating factor, let alone all the other metrics and things. That would be the place where you find the show. Social media, that's all in the description below as well. And if you'd like to support the show monetarily, there's a link to buymeacoffee.com/SaturdayMorningReview. All the funds would go towards the comics and the pro wrestling pay-per-views and subscriptions and all the like. So that would be much appreciated as well. So we'll go ahead and close it out. Thank you so very much again for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it, and I will see you guys in the next one.
This has been a DMW production. Thanks for stopping by.